Japan, a country where ancient gods once shaped the islands, where warriors carved loyalty into steel, and where a quiet nation rose from ashes to become one of the most influential cultures on Earth. But how did a land built by myth, ruled by samurai, and reborn by innovation become the Japan we know today? This is the story the textbooks never told you, and once you hear it, you'll never see Japan the same way again. Era 1. The land born from gods. Mythic beginnings. Before Japan had emperors, warriors, or even a name, there was only mist, ocean, and the silent heartbeat of the earth. According to ancient Japanese mythology, the world was not created in a single moment. It unfolded slowly like a flower waking at sunrise. From this cosmic stillness emerged two divine beings, the creator gods Izanagi and Izanami. They stood upon the floating bridge of heaven, looking down at the endless sea swirling beneath them. With a jeweled spear in hand, Izanagi dipped its tip into the waters below. And when he lifted it, droplets fell back into the ocean. Each droplet hardened into land. And so the first island of Japan was formed, Onogoro, sacred, quiet, and waiting. The gods descended to this newborn land, built a shining palace, and circled its pillar in a ritual of union. From their bond, the islands of Japan continued to emerge, green, volcanic, vibrant with life. Mountains rose like the spines of sleeping dragons. Rivers cut through valleys like silver threads. Forests grew thick with cedar, pine, and unseen spirits. To ancient people, nothing was ordinary. Every tree, every stone, every gust of wind was believed to hold a kami, a spirit, a presence. Japan was a world where nature didn't just exist. It watched it, listened it, lived. At night, villagers would gather around small fires, telling stories of fox spirits that shapeshifted into beautiful women, and river dragons that guarded hidden treasures. Children learned to bow before old trees, knowing they were older than memory. Farmers whispered prayers to mountain gods for safe harvests. Fishermen offered rice and sake to the ocean, hoping it would spare their boats. Japan's earliest identity was not built on war, power, or conquest. It was built on harmony, on the belief that humans were only one thread in a much larger tapestry woven by unseen hands. This deep respect for nature became the foundation of Shinto, Japan's indigenous belief system. Not a religion of commandments, but a way of living in balance with the world. Even today, if you wander into a forest in Japan, you may find a small wooden shrine tucked between ancient trees. If you listen closely, you may still feel that quiet connection, that whisper of something old, something sacred. Because in Japan, the past isn't gone. It's alive. It breathes beneath the roots of trees, inside the waves of the sea, and in every corner where the modern world hasn't yet washed away the ancient one. Japan began as a story told by the gods, and even now, thousands of years later, it still feels like a land touched by myth. Era 2. The birth of emperors and the rise of a nation. As centuries passed after the age of gods and creation myths, the people of the islands began shaping their own destiny. Villages grew into clans, clans grew into tribes, and slowly Japan stepped out of its mythic dawn and into recorded history. But even as the world changed, one belief remained untouched. Japan was the land of the gods, and its rulers were chosen by heaven, the sun goddess and a sacred bloodline. In Japan's earliest legends, the sun goddess Amaterasu, the most radiant of all kami, sent her descendants to rule the earth. Among them was Ninigi no Mikoto, who carried with him three sacred treasures that symbolized divine authority: the mirror, truth; the sword, courage; the jewel, benevolence. These treasures were the heart of imperial power. Generations later, his descendant Jimmu became the first human emperor, marking the beginning of the Yamato dynasty, a bloodline so ancient and unbroken that it still exists today. Over 2,600 years later, Japan became a nation through myth, but it survived through unity. The Yamato clan, the first real power. Around the 3rd and 4th centuries, one clan rose above all, the Yamato. Located in what is now Nara Prefecture, They built enormous burial mounds, keyhole-shaped tombs so massive they could be seen from the sky. These monuments were not just graves, they were declarations of power. The Yamato clan united other tribes through diplomacy, alliances, and, when necessary, war. Slowly, the patchwork of early Japan began to merge. A nation was taking shape: China and Korea, the arrival of ideas that transformed Japan. With unification came curiosity. Envoys traveled to Korea and China and returned with treasures far more valuable than gold. Buddhism, Chinese writing, kanji, new forms of government, architecture, advanced agriculture. Japan absorbed these ideas like a sponge, molding them into something uniquely Japanese. Elegant temples rose from the earth. Scribes recorded history in writing for the first time. Courts reformed. Culture blossomed. The emperor became more than a ruler. He became the bridge between heaven and earth, a spiritual symbol of national unity. The birth of a capital, Nara, and the dawn of civilization. In 710, Japan built its first true capital, Heiokyo, known today as Nara. Unlike anything before it, Nara was a masterpiece of urban design. Broad streets, bustling markets, pagodas soaring into the sky. The city pulsed with artists, monks, scholars, and traders. Buddhism blended with Shinto beliefs, creating a culture rich in both spirituality and beauty. The giant bronze Great Buddha of Todaiji, completed in the 8th century, symbolized Japan's ambition and unity. Even today, it remains one of the largest bronze statues in the world. Japan had stepped fully into civilization. The Heian Glow. When Japan became Japan. In 794, the capital moved to Heian-kyo, modern-day Kyoto. This era, known as the Heian period, became a golden age of Japanese culture. Noble families lived in elegant wooden villas surrounded by gardens. Poetry competitions were a mark of sophistication. Calligraphy was considered a glimpse into the soul. And from this world of beauty emerged the world's first novel, The Tale of Genji, written by Lady Murasaki Shikibu. Japan was no longer borrowing culture. It was creating culture, refined, delicate, uniquely its own. But in the shadows, unrest began to grow. As the imperial court drowned itself in art, ceremony, and politics, distant provinces became harder to control. Powerful warrior families began rising in the countryside. Local conflicts simmered, tensions increased. Japan had created a kingdom of elegance, but beneath the silk screens and poetry, a new kind of strength was forming. Men trained with swords, clans forged alliances, whispers of war drifted on the wind. The age of emperors and nobles was fading, and from the horizon, a new force approached. The samurai. The next era would change Japan forever. Era 3. The Age of Samurai, a nation forged in steel. The elegant world of poets, nobles, and court ceremonies in Kyoto was fading. Beautiful, yes, but fragile. Beyond the capital's painted screens and silk robes, a new power was rising. One shaped not by fragile fans and ink brushes, but by iron, discipline, and unbreakable loyalty. This was the dawn of the samurai. Whispers before the storm. Japan's provinces had grown restless. The imperial court, drowning in luxury and politics, had lost control of the countryside. Local clans, warrior clans, began to protect their lands on their own. They trained men to fight, defend, and lead. These warriors wore armor of lacquered plates tied together with silk cords. Their swords, curved sharp, crafted by master smiths, became an extension of their soul. These men called themselves bushi, but history remembers them as samurai, those who served. The First Great War. Taira versus Minamoto, two clans grew more powerful than all others. The Taira, Heike, masters of the sea and court politics. The Minamoto, Genji, fierce warriors with deep provincial roots. Their rivalry split the nation. For years, Japan became a battlefield. Warriors fought on horseback through rivers, mountains, and burning villages. Battles were announced with formal declarations. Samurai shouted their lineage before striking, for honor mattered even more than survival. And then came the final war, the Genpei War, 1180–1185. It ended in one of the most dramatic scenes in Japanese history. The Battle of Dan no Ura, a fierce naval clash that destroyed the Taira. Their young child emperor, Antoku, drowned at sea with the sacred treasures, carried into the deep by loyal retainers. The sea turned red that day, and the age of the samurai truly began. The rise of the shogun, a new ruler of Japan. After defeating the Taira, the Minamoto clan's leader Minamoto no Yoritomo claimed a new title, shogun, the supreme military commander of Japan. This changed everything. The emperor remained in Kyoto, still sacred, still divine, but the real power had shifted. Japan had become a military state, a nation ruled not by poets but by warriors. Yoritomo established his own government far from Kyoto, in a quiet coastal town called Kamakura. There he created a system of warrior lords, vassals, loyalties, and land rights. Japan had its first samurai government, and for centuries to come, power would rest in the hands of shoguns, not emperors. The Mongol invasions. When Japan faced the world. For decades, Japan remained isolated and confident. Then, a threat unlike any before appeared on the horizon, the Mongol Empire. The most powerful military force the world had ever seen. In 1274 and 1281, Mongol fleets approached Japan with tens of thousands of soldiers. Their weapons were new, their tactics were brutal, their might was unmatched. Japan was outnumbered, outmatched, and on the verge of destruction. But something unexpected happened. A violent typhoon swept across the sea, destroying the Mongol ships. The Japanese believed it was a gift from the gods. They called it kamikaze, the divine wind. Japan had survived, but the invasions drained the nation's resources and weakened the samurai government, the samurai way, Bushido. During these years of constant war and uncertainty, the samurai developed a code that defined their lives, Bushido, the way of the warrior. It valued honor, courage, loyalty, self-discipline, and accepting death without fear. A samurai lived by the sword, but more importantly, he lived by principle. This code would shape Japanese culture for centuries. The fall of Kamakura. By the 1330s, the Kamakura shogunate had grown weak. Warriors felt unpaid. Clans grew resentful. An angry emperor, Go-Daigo, attempted to take back power. Civil war broke out once again. A brilliant general named Ashikaga Takauji betrayed the emperor and formed a new shogunate in Kyoto. Japan entered the Ashikaga era, where culture blossomed. Tea ceremony, Zen gardens, no theater, but political unity began to crumble. Towards chaos. The Onin War in 1467, a succession dispute triggered the catastrophic Onin War in Kyoto. The capital burned, nobles fled, central authority collapsed. For the next 100 years, Japan spiraled into the Sengoku era, the Warring States period. Clans became kingdoms, lords became warlords, samurai became armies. Japan was now a land of endless battles, shifting alliances, daring betrayals, and legendary warriors. The old world had shattered, and from this chaos, 3 powerful men would rise to reunite the nation. Their names would echo through history. But that comes next. Era 4. The Warring States and the unification of Japan. After centuries of imperial elegance and samurai honor, Japan fell into its darkest age. The capital burned. Lords turned into warlords. Villages became battlegrounds. Alliances shattered in a single night. This period, known as the Sengoku Jidai, the Warring States era, was a century-long storm of betrayal, ambition, and blood. But from that chaos, 3 extraordinary men emerged. 3 men who shaped Japan's destiny more than any others. Part 1. Oda Nobunaga, the demon who dared to change Japan. In the mid-1500s, one daimyo, warlord, rose above the rest. Oda Nobunaga. He wasn't noble. He wasn't gentle. He didn't care about tradition. He wanted power. and he would reshape Japan to get it. Nobunaga was a genius general. He introduced guns on the battlefield when others dismissed them. He built alliances through fear, speed, and brilliant strategy, and he crushed rival clans with a cold, relentless efficiency that terrified the nation. But he wasn't just a destroyer. He was a modernizer. He encouraged trade, welcomed foreign technology, and opened Japan to new ideas. Many called him a tyrant, others called him a visionary, but history remembers him for one truth. He shattered the old Japan so a new one could be born. Nobunaga was close to unifying the entire nation, but in 1582, betrayal struck. One of his own generals, Akechi Mitsuhide, surrounded him at the temple of Honnoji. Rather than be captured, Nobunaga performed seppuku, ending his life, but not his dream. That dream would be carried on by another man. Part 2. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the peasant who ruled Japan. Hideyoshi began life as a poor farmer's son, a man who should have lived and died in obscurity. But he possessed something rare: brilliant tactics, unmatched charisma, and a mind sharp enough to open any door. He rose from peasant to samurai to general to ruler of all Japan. Hideyoshi completed what Nobunaga began. He brought the remaining warlords under his control. Through diplomacy when possible, domination when necessary, he became the unifier of Japan. But he was also ambitious beyond imagination. He launched invasions of Korea, dreaming of conquering China and India afterward. His dreams were too vast and his campaigns failed. When Hideyoshi died in 1598, the nation teetered again. His young son was too weak to rule, and so the door opened for the third great unifier. Part 3. Tokugawa Ieyasu, the patient strategist who brought peace. If Nobunaga was fire and Hideyoshi was wind, then Tokugawa Ieyasu was stone, steady, patient, unshakable. He waited decades for his moment. In 1600 that moment came. Rival factions clashed in the legendary Battle of Sekigahara, the largest samurai battle in Japanese history. When the dust settled, Ieyasu stood victorious. In 1603 he became shogun, and he built a new government in Edo, modern-day Tokyo. What followed was one of the most remarkable transformations in world history. Tokugawa's rule brought 260 years of peace. For the first time in centuries, Japan was united, stable, and safe. But peace came with a price. Part 4. The closed country. Sakoku Tokugawa feared foreign influence, guns, and religion, so he closed Japan off from the world. No foreign travel. External trade strictly limited. Almost no outsiders allowed in. Christianity banned. Japan became a sealed world, preserved like a living time capsule. And yet inside this isolation, art flourished, kabuki theater rose, woodblock prints evolved, tea ceremony and Zen philosophy deepened, cities grew, culture thrived. While Europe endured revolutions and wars, Japan experienced a peaceful cultural bloom. For over 2 centuries, the samurai ruled a quiet, ordered nation, but peace cannot stop time. By the 1800s, the world outside Japan had changed, industrialized, powerful, restless, and one day in 1853, strange shadows appeared on the horizon. Massive warships approached Edo Bay. Black smoke trailed behind them like thunderclouds. Japan's 250-year silence was about to shatter. Era 5. The Black Ships and the Opening of Japan. For more than 250 years, Japan lived in a carefully controlled stillness. No foreign armies, no foreign ideas, no chaos. Only order, tradition, and the quiet rhythm of a society frozen in time. The Tokugawa shogunate believed peace could last forever if the world was kept out. But the world did not agree. The day the sea turned black. On a summer morning in 1853, fishermen along Edo Bay noticed something strange. The horizon, normally calm and blue, began to darken, not with clouds, not with storms, but with something far more terrifying. 4 massive warships, larger than anything Japan had ever seen, moving with a power the samurai had no name for. Their hulls were black. Their engines roared like thunder. Smoke curled into the sky, turning it as dark as night. To the Japanese, they looked like monsters from another world. People whispered, the black ships have come." And at their helm was Commodore Matthew Perry of the United States Navy. His mission: force Japan to open its closed borders. A clash of centuries. The samurai rushed to the shores. Archers took positions, cannons loaded. Soldiers trembled, not from fear, but from confusion. Everything they knew, everything they trained for, was built on swords, bows, and honor. But Perry's warships carried weapons capable of destroying Edo in a single day. Guns that fired shells over miles. Cannons Japan had never imagined. When Perry delivered his demand that Japan sign a treaty with the United States, the shogunate faced an impossible truth. Japan could not win. Not this time. Not against a world powered by steam, steel, and industry. The age of isolation had reached its end. The opening of Japan. Reluctantly, the Tokugawa government signed the Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854. Japan opened 2 ports for American ships, a small concession that would ripple through history. Then came more treaties, more foreign powers, more demands. Suddenly, Japan, once silent, hidden, untouched, was thrust into the roaring 19th century world. The people were shocked, angry, confused. The samurai blamed the shogunate. The shogunate blamed the foreigners. The nation spiraled toward crisis. The end of an era. Japan realized something profound. If it didn't modernize, it would be colonized. China was already suffering under Western powers. India was under British rule. Southeast Asia had been carved up by European empires. Japan knew it had one last chance to survive. The samurai, once symbols of power, now found themselves outdated. Their swords looked like relics against rifles. Their traditions looked like antiques beside Western science. Rebellion ignited across the country. Young samurai, furious with the shogunate's weakness, rallied behind a new idea: restore power to the emperor, overthrow the shogun, rebuild Japan. In 1868, after centuries of military rule, the Tokugawa shogunate collapsed. The emperor, once a symbolic figure, was restored to true power. His name was Emperor Meiji. And under his rule, Japan would undergo one of the fastest, most astonishing transformations in world history. The old Japan had ended. A new Japan, modern, powerful, and unstoppable, was about to begin. Era 6, the Meiji Restoration and the birth of modern Japan. When the Tokugawa shogunate fell in 1868, Japan stood at a crossroads. Behind it lay centuries of tradition: samurai, swords, tea ceremonies, isolation. Ahead of it loomed a world of machines, factories, guns, and empires. Most nations would have collapsed under that pressure. But Japan did something unimaginable. It rewrote its entire identity in a single generation: the return of the emperor. In 1868, a 15-year-old emperor ascended the throne. Emperor Meiji. He was young, he was inexperienced, but he was surrounded by brilliant minds. Scholars, reformers, warriors with modern dreams. Together they began what history calls the Meiji Restoration, a national rebirth. The message was clear: Japan must modernize, or Japan will die. The end of the samurai era. One of the first and hardest steps, the samurai had to be dissolved. For centuries, these warriors were the heart of Japan. But now, rifles, factories, and Western tactics made swords obsolete. New laws stripped samurai of their privileges. No more carrying swords in public. Stipends replaced by jobs. Samurai status abolished. It was like tearing out the soul of a nation. And yet it had to be done for Japan to survive. Many samurai adapted, others refused. This tension erupted in the Satsuma Rebellion, 1877, led by the legendary Saigo Takamori, the last true samurai. But modernized government forces, armed with Western rifles and artillery, defeated the rebellion. The age of samurai ended. The age of modern Japan had begun. Transformation at lightning speed. While other countries took centuries to modernize, Japan did it in 20 years. Factories rose where rice paddies once stood. Railways cut across the land. Telegraph lines spread communication at unimaginable speed. Schools expanded nationwide. Western science, medicine, and engineering flooded in. Japan sent students to Europe and America to learn everything: architecture, shipbuilding, banking, education, government, and they returned home to build a new Japan brick by brick. The transformation was so fast, so extreme, that visitors couldn't believe their eyes. Imagine stepping into a country in 1868 that looked like medieval Asia, and returning in 1895 to find trains, electricity, and modern cities. Japan looked like it time-traveled. A modern military and a new national identity. Japan didn't just adopt industry, it adopted power. The Meiji government built a modern army and Western-style navy. Samurai swords were replaced with German rifles. Samurai armor was replaced with European uniforms. Japan no longer feared colonization. It was becoming strong enough to defend itself, and soon, strong enough to challenge others. Japan steps onto the world stage. By the late 1800s, Japan shocked the world. 1894-95, Japan defeats China in the First Sino-Japanese War. This was unthinkable. China had been a giant. Japan had once been its student, but now the student surpassed the master. In 1904-05, Japan defeats Russia in the Russo-Japanese War. This was even more shocking. Japan became the first Asian nation in modern history to defeat a major European empire. The world realized Japan was no longer isolated. Japan was a modern power. Japan had risen, the price of transformation. Japan's modernization was a miracle, but it came with consequences. Rapid industrialization created social tension. Traditional ways of life began to fade. National pride grew into nationalism, and the hunger for resources and recognition pushed Japan toward expansion. A storm was forming on the horizon. Japan had rebuilt itself with unmatched determination, but the world was about to enter an era of global conflict, and Japan would not escape it. Era 7. Japan in World War II. Empire conflict and unimaginable tragedy. A nation at its peak and at its breaking point. By the 1930s, Japan had transformed from a once isolated archipelago into a global powerhouse. Its factories roared. Its military was modern and disciplined. Its influence stretched across Asia, but with rapid growth came a dangerous belief. Japan deserves an empire. Japan lacked natural resources, oil, steel, rubber, essential for industry and military power. To survive, leaders believed they had to expand. Soon, ambition shifted into aggression. The road toward Japan's expansion began with the invasion of Manchuria, 1931. What started as military strategy soon grew into full-scale conflict. By 1937, Japan entered brutal war with China, a conflict so devastating it became one of the darkest chapters in Asian history. The government, driven by nationalism and militaristic pride, believed Japan was unstoppable. Propaganda told citizens that Japan was destined to liberate Asia. Students were taught to worship the emperor. Young soldiers marched with unshakable belief in an imperial destiny, but destiny was heading toward disaster. Pearl Harbor, the strike that changed the world. On December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor. In Japan, people celebrated. They believed victory would be swift. They believed America would negotiate. But history had other plans. Within hours, the world changed. The United States entered the war fully committed. Japan had awakened a giant. The Pacific War, a fight with no mercy. The battles that followed were unlike anything Japan had faced. Midway, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, Okinawa island by island, the U.S. pushed Japan back. Japan's navy was shattered, its air force depleted. Yet soldiers refused surrender. Even in hopeless situations, they fought until the last breath. Civilians suffered unimaginably. Cities burned under relentless bombing. Families starved. The sky itself seemed to fall. And then the unthinkable happened. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, two blinding lights, August 6, 1945. A quiet morning in Hiroshima. People walked to work. Children went to school. The sky was clear. At 8:15 a.m., a single bomber dropped a single weapon. In less than a second, a fire brighter than the sun consumed the city. 3 days later, Nagasaki faced the same fate. 2 bombs, 2 cities erased, hundreds of thousands of lives lost. Japan was broken, physically, emotionally, spiritually. No story, no metaphor, no description can fully capture the scale of that tragedy. The surrender. We must endure the unendurable. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito addressed the nation for the first time in history. His voice trembled on the radio as he said, "We must endure the unendurable." Japan surrendered. The war was over. After centuries of pride, power, and transformation, Japan lay in ruins. Cities turned to ash. Millions homeless. Economy collapsed. An entire generation traumatized. But this was not the end of Japan's story. It was the beginning of something new. Something the world would one day marvel at. A rebirth. A phoenix rising from absolute destruction. Era 7. Japan in World War II. Empire conflict and unimaginable tragedy. A nation at its peak and at its breaking point. By the 1930s, Japan had transformed from a once isolated archipelago into a global powerhouse. Its factories roared. Its military was modern and disciplined. Its influence stretched across Asia, but with rapid growth came a dangerous belief. Japan deserves an empire. Japan lacked natural resources, oil, steel, rubber, essential for industry and military power. To survive, leaders believed they had to expand. Soon, ambition shifted into aggression. The road toward Japan's expansion began with the invasion of Manchuria, 1931. What started as military strategy soon grew into full-scale conflict. By 1937, Japan entered brutal war with China, a conflict so devastating it became one of the darkest chapters in Asian history. The government, driven by nationalism and militaristic pride, believed Japan was unstoppable. Propaganda told citizens that Japan was destined to liberate Asia. Students were taught to worship the emperor. Young soldiers marched with unshakable belief in an imperial destiny, but destiny was heading toward disaster. Pearl Harbor, the strike that changed the world. On December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor. In Japan, people celebrated. They believed victory would be swift. They believed America would negotiate. But history had other plans. Within hours, the world changed. The United States entered the war fully committed. Japan had awakened a giant. The Pacific War, a fight with no mercy. The battles that followed were unlike anything Japan had faced. Midway, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, Okinawa island by island, the U.S. pushed Japan back. Japan's navy was shattered, its air force depleted. Yet soldiers refused surrender. Even in hopeless situations, they fought until the last breath. Civilians suffered unimaginably. Cities burned under relentless bombing. Families starved. The sky itself seemed to fall. And then the unthinkable happened. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 blinding lights, August 6, 1945. A quiet morning in Hiroshima. People walked to work. Children went to school. The sky was clear. At 8:15 a.m., a single bomber dropped a single weapon. In less than a second, a fire brighter than the sun consumed the city. 3 days later, Nagasaki faced the same fate. 2 bombs, 2 cities erased, hundreds of thousands of lives lost. Japan was broken, physically, emotionally, spiritually. No story, no metaphor, no description can fully capture the scale of that tragedy. The surrender. We must endure the unendurable. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito addressed the nation for the first time in history. His voice trembled on the radio as he said, "We must endure the unendurable." Japan surrendered. The war was over. After centuries of pride, power, and transformation, Japan lay in ruins. Cities turned to ash. Millions homeless. Economy collapsed. An entire generation traumatized. But this was not the end of Japan's story. It was the beginning of something new, something the world would one day marvel at. A rebirth, a phoenix rising from absolute destruction. Era 9, modern Japan technology, culture, and the soft power revolution. A new era dawns. Japan steps into the future. By the 2000s, Japan was no longer defined by war or economic recovery. It was defined by innovation, culture, and a global influence so powerful that it reshaped childhoods, fashion, technology, and entertainment across the world. If the post-war era rebuilt Japan's body, the modern era rebuilt its soul, and the world felt it. The kingdom of technology, Japan, became the place where imagination became reality. Walking through Tokyo felt like stepping into tomorrow. Robots greeting customers, vending machines selling everything imaginable, subways arriving with perfect precision, toilets smarter than computers, neon cityscapes glowing like digital art. Companies like Canon, Hitachi, Fujitsu, Toshiba, Nintendo helped launch Japan into a technological renaissance. But Japan's greatest global impact wasn't technology. It was something more colorful, more emotional, more universal. The entertainment explosion. Japan takes over. Pop culture. From the 1980s onward, Japan quietly became the heartbeat of global entertainment. Video games. Nintendo, PlayStation, and Sega created worlds that shaped generations. Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Final Fantasy, Sonic, Metal Gear. Solid millions grew up in digital universes born in Japan. Anime transformed from a local art form into a global phenomenon. Series like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, One Piece, Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer captured the world's imagination with emotional depth, unique art, and unforgettable heroes. Manga became the second largest publishing market on earth. People in every country read stories created in Japan. Japan didn't just export shows, it exported emotion, philosophy, and storytelling. This was soft power at its peak. Japan's lifestyle leaves. Its mark, Japanese culture, didn't stop at entertainment. It changed how the world eats, travels, dresses, decorates, relaxes, thinks. Japanese cuisine becomes global. Sushi, ramen, tempura, mochi, matcha. Foods once foreign became universal favorites. Minimalism. Japan inspired a global trend towards simple, peaceful living. The world learned the beauty of neutral spaces, clean lines, natural textures, thoughtful design. Kawaii culture. Cute characters like Hello Kitty, Pikachu, and Rilakkuma spread a joyful aesthetic that became instantly recognizable. Zen philosophy, meditation, simplicity, and mindfulness became worldwide movements. Japan wasn't just influencing trends, it was influencing mindsets. Innovation meets tradition. Modern Japan is a delicate blend. Sushi chefs who trained for 10 years, working beside AI robots that assemble cars with perfect precision. Temples older than European kingdoms, standing next to skyscrapers glowing with animated billboards. Cherry blossoms drifting through high-tech cities. Kimono fabrics sold beside VR headsets. Ancient shrines behind futuristic bullet trains. No other country blends past and future so seamlessly. Japan didn't abandon tradition for progress. It made tradition part of progress. Japan's role in the modern world today. Japan is one of the safest nations on earth, a cultural superpower, a technology leader, a soft power giant, a destination millions dream of visiting, a symbol of discipline, creativity, and elegance. The world loves Japan, and Japan continues to inspire the world. And despite earthquakes, economic challenges, and demographic struggles, Japan remains steady, peaceful, inventive, and endlessly captivating. Japan's modern legacy. Japan is no longer defined by emperors, samurai, war, or recovery. It is defined by something far more powerful: creativity, innovation, imagination, resilience, heart. Japan's modern era proves that a nation doesn't need dominance or force to influence the world. You just need stories. You need culture. You need beauty. You need ideas worth sharing. Japan gave the world all of these, and the world embraced them. Era 10. The future of Japan. Between tomorrow and tradition, Japan stands once again at a crossroads, just like it did during the Meiji Restoration, just like it did after World War II. But this time, the challenge is different. The threat isn't invasion, famine, or bombs. It's time itself. A nation growing older. Japan has the world's highest percentage of elderly citizens. Birth rates are falling, population is shrinking, villages fade into silence, schools close, and once busy shopping streets become memories. It is a quiet crisis, slow, gentle, but powerful. But Japan has never feared difficulty. It has always adapted. And now, as the population thins, Japan turns to its newest allies, robots, AI, advanced engineering. Not to replace humans, but to support them. Robotic caregivers help the elderly stand and walk. AI assistants reduce labor shortages. Automation keeps factories alive. Japan is showing the world how to face the future with compassion and creativity. Technology beyond imagination. Japan's road ahead glows with innovation. Maglev trains, floating above the tracks at 600 km/h, the fastest trains humanity has ever built. Smart cities, urban ecosystems powered by AI that reduce waste, prevent accidents, and boost quality of life. Disaster technology, earthquake-resistant buildings that sway instead of break. Tsunami walls engineered with incredible precision. Sensors that alert entire prefectures in seconds. Japan's future is not just high-tech. It is human-focused tech. Tech that protects, heals, and elevates life. Japan's role in a changing world. Japan is shaping the future in unexpected ways. Green energy and sustainability, developing hydrogen power, clean transportation, eco-friendly cities, medical innovations leading advancements in longevity, biotechnology and regenerative medicine, creative powerhouse. Anime, gaming, fashion, and design continue to define global youth culture. Peace diplomacy. Japan uses influence through cooperation, innovation, and culture, never force. The world is changing rapidly, but Japan remains uniquely Japan. Quiet, elegant, thoughtful. A leader that influences inspiration rather than intimidation. Tradition guiding the future. What makes Japan's future so magical isn't its technology, it's that the future never erases the past. Robots perform tea ceremonies. Startups meet in shrines for blessings. Students carry smartphones beside old temples. Cherry blossoms bloom over bullet trains. Japan's future is not a rejection of its history. It is an extension of it, a fusion of ancient wisdom, modern ethics, futuristic ambition. The world admires Japan because it builds the future without losing its soul. The road ahead, a future only Japan can build. Japan's next era is a story still being written, a story of a nation facing its challenges, embracing innovation, honoring its traditions, influencing the world quietly, beautifully, powerfully. Japan's future won't be loud. It won't be chaotic. It will be thoughtful, refined, and revolutionary in its own way. And one truth remains unchanged. Japan has risen before. Japan is rising again. And Japan will continue to inspire the world, tomorrow and far beyond.